This video is going to show you Solar Falls Grasp of Avarice dungeon during the Season of the Haunted on a Solar 3.0 subclass. For those who just want to see that, then skip the timestamps. Over that, I can show you the setup that I used. Obviously, you can do this on all three subclasses. I'm just starting off with one of the funnest ones. So, if you're going for Solar Flawless, then this is the emblem that you get. If you're not going for Solar Flawless, you'll still get your Pinnacle drop if people are still leveling up. So that's sort of why I'm uploading it. But that's what the emblem looks like for this particular dungeon. Probably the least favourite one of the emblems, but that's what it looks like. So the subclass in the loadout, right? So we're using Soul 3.0 as I said because it's launched this season, so I'm going to use that. We're using Well of Radiance, Empower and Rift, Celestial Fire melee, Fusion Grenades, Aspects of Touch of Flame, Icarus Dash. Fragments are Ember of Wonder, Torches, Solace, and Ashes. Right, there's a couple of different variants you can use, but some of the fragments are the main ones, okay, that you want to spec for. Using the exact chestplate Starfire protocol, it gives you an extra fusion grenade. It makes fusion grenades OP for damage and stuff, right? So you're going to see how well it performs in this dungeon. That's the whole point, really, of the video. Weapon-wise, using the exotic grain launcher Witherhoard, a fully crafted likely suspect. So I'll just show you if you're interested. Extended barrel, liquid coils, enhanced slideways, enhanced golden tricorn. If you want to use any other fusion, you can. If you want to use a Waveframe GL, you can. If you want to use Salvo, because it's got demo on it, you can. Whatever you want to use in this slot, I recommend that you can. Even a primary works okay, right? Like a fast, rapid fire, like an SMG or a rifle, or even a trace rifle. Anything in that slot that you're comfortable with. And then we're using a Demolitionist rocket, right? It just works out really easy for damage. You don't need to think too much, and that's why I'm sort of doing it. But if you've got a bait and switch Cataclysmic, that will out DPS this by a huge ton, and it's actually decent with what we're doing. So if you want to do that linear style loadout, you can. I'm just showing off this setup with the demo rocket. Put boss spec in all your stuff. You don't really need to optimize major specs so much. Just put boss spec in all your stuff. And as I said, bring a primary just in case for later on, just in case you want to swap to it. And also a sword. I recommend a sword, so I brought Fallen Guillotine to this. As for armor mods, so we're using Armor Finders on the helmet, Well of Life, so when we pick up an elemental well, we get regen. Elemental Charge, when we pick up an elemental well, we get Charge of Light. GL Loader, because we're using that quite a bit. You don't have to have GL loader because obviously with the catalyst it auto loads Witherhoard, but I just put that on there because I had a free mod slot, I guess. We're going to switch these mods, so at the final boss fight we'll run double arc resist, but at the start I'm going to run the Solar Void arc trifecta burn. I've got this arc on to proc Strike and Light. Strike and Light is a resistance style mod, and I'm going to get that via our elemental charge, elemental wells, right? Elemental Ordnance to get the Elemental Well from getting grenade kills. Rocket Launcher Scavenger is recommended. Whatever heavy you're using, proc for that. Linear Scab's bugged though, so don't use Linear Scab. And then on here we've got Molten Overload because it works against all enemies in the game. However, it's not a very good mod on champs, but it's okay on everything else. So you can actually use it. I didn't have to. I could have used something else, but I had a free mod slot again. But this is the main mod that you want to have. Classy Restoration. On. Make sure you put that on. It'll make your life a lot easier with the Soul 3.0 runs. That's the setup that I was using for Grasp. So as we start the run, we'll obviously have to do the opening encounter. This dungeon was bugged, but has now been fixed. There's a couple of oddities still with it, but it's actually doable now. Things actually work in this dungeon, right? So this start bit we have obviously just adds to clear, right, and pick up the riches. So for those who like sort of know this dungeon, you can go ahead and skip this part until probably the first boss if you're aware of where to go, etc. For those of you that aren't confident with it, then I can just briefly explain a couple of mechanics, which is pretty simple to understand, right? So obviously the ads drop the burden by riches, the engrams, right? When you pick up that, you get a timer. That timer starts at 30 seconds and refreshes each time you pick up a burn by riches. You then deposit those riches to a crystal. Now, in this case, it's in the cave. So we need to deposit, I think it's 50 or 60. I think it's 60. I think it's 60 in this, or 50. No, it might be 50. But just keep going until you get, you know, around about 50. And then just what you want to do is just spawn kill all the ads with Witherhoard. That's why we've got Witherhoard on. That's one reason. Very good on ad clear and stuff. And good for assisting with boss damage and all that. And it's really good with Starfire. Obviously the ads won't keep spawning if you sit in the cave. You'll always know this when you're LFG in this dungeon. There'll be always somebody sitting in the cave stopping the spawn. The spawn will stop. So make sure that you're rotating in and out. There's a sniper to your right. But as long as you're rocking a good resilience stat, which I really didn't mention in my intro, rock as high resilience as possible. Even that, if that means your recovery is bad, that's okay. I mean, it's not ideal, but what I'm trying to say is resilience is the golden tier stat now for PvE. You should always be running as high as possible. I've got a tier 9 resilience, tier 8 recovery, tier 9 discipline. Now I have better armor to get the, you know, the triple 100, but I've got some mods on, you know, like strike and light and stuff like that to account for. So like a treble 9 or a split like what I've got's good enough. All right. If you haven't got the triple 100, that doesn't mean you can't solo forces. That's fine as long as you've got a good resilience stat, as I said, and a good discipline stat, and then your third stat should probably be recovery, because recovery is still important in the game. Let's not just say that recovery isn't important. It is, because when Classy Restoration goes, which is a seasonal style mod, recovery is still important. It's very noticeable if you're playing with like less than tier 7 recovery. Your recovery's taken a long time, and when you're solo and there's a lot of enemies shooting at you, you want that health regen as soon as you can. It's not a problem this season because of obviously Solo 3.0 with the Classy Restoration. So the gameplay loop of Starfire is grenade, rift, grenade, rift. So when you stand in a rift, you get fusion grenade energy on the damage that you deal. And when you get a 1 kill with your fusion grenade, you get an instant recharge rate of your empowering rift. So that's the gameplay loop of it, right? I recommend that you learn this playstyle if you haven't. If you're still playing on like Void 3.0 or Devour, then learn this class, because it's really good for damage. It's very, what I would say is, it's ammo efficient, because you don't need to go all in with your heavy, because the fusion grenades do more of your damage rather than your weapons. The weapons are assisting with that damage. I've just put the icing on top with using a demo rocket to show that off, even though it hasn't got like Vorpal or whatever. It's got impact case and Sleepless, these Sleepless have, but it hasn't got, you know, like Vorpal or whatever. But as I said, it's just helping out with the fusion grenades. You know, I'm nading and then I'm rocketing, and so on and so forth. And the fusion's mainly for ag clear, right? So I do recommend double special heavy, because you're going to get more heavy as a result, right? So I do recommend that. With this section here, I'm not going to do it as it should be done, where you do each switch and you work up the room. You don't need to do that, especially with Icarus Dash. You can just make these long jumps. On a hunter you struggle, you're going to need stompies and a sword, right? On a Titan you're fine, you lie in ramparts. But as I said, on a Warlock, because of how good the jump is, you know, you can just make all the jumps and just follow the route on screen. So if you don't really know where to go, what switches, make sure you're pulling all the right switches. You pull any wrong switches, then it's a trap, and then you die and you lose your solo floors. So if you are going for that, then just bear that in mind. My ammo's pretty low here, which I've got a couple of solo wizards to deal with. That isn't that big of a problem, because I've got nades. We're going to try and get these ads here. I usually like to do a Witherhoard and they run into it. Just clears out so that the dregs aren't hitting me in the back. So with this little room here, it's all numbered. You go to 1 first, of course. Clear out those acolytes that get in your way. Ammo's not too important, because we're going to have a banner coming up for the first boss. So we'll just go to 1. 4 is your end, right? So we just go to 1, then 3. There'll be a solo wizard. I'm going to use a nade here, and Classy Restoration, because if you're running past all these acolytes, it's a good idea to pop a rift so that you're invulnerable for the 10 seconds. So you can run past them. You don't need to clear them all out. It's not a problem. Sometimes the solo wizards will actually fall down and die. They just randomly do that. So if you don't get a wizard, then you don't get a wizard. That's fine. It might happen. activate the last switch. Now that then activates the Fallen with the Scorch Cannon. So this is the next mechanic. I've already explained the first mechanic with the Burn by Riches. You pick up the Burn by Riches by adds, the timer refreshes, you then deposit. But every 10 riches you get your full ability energy, super, grenade, melee, and rift. Or you know, whatever class you're on. So this is the next mechanic with the Scorch Cannon. You need to overclock these generators, whatever they are, these fallen devices, right? Make sure it's maximum charged, right? You can't, or you can overclock it by doing single shots, but that's inefficient solo. You need to learn how to just be using one shot at a time, because that comes in vital when you're at the final boss, because you will lose so much time if you just single shot in those generators. So make sure that you are charging the cannon. I feel as though most people know this, but I'm just stating it. Also, don't drop the cannon. You've got a free cannon here. People drop the cannon. Don't drop it. Right? Bring it with you to the fight, because this means that you've now got 2 phases of damage on the Ogre, because this is the first cannon, and then there'll be another cannon that will be waiting for you, because the Ogre will kill the Vandal, and you can go and pick up a second cannon. Right? You can actually do the whole thing with just one cannon if you're careful enough, but I really don't think you need to be that careful with it. And I play this safe. This was actually my first run. This was literally because I know Grasp of Avarice is going to be the Pinnacle drop. Quickly come on before servers are going down, get this done. Got it done first go on this loadout. I was very interested to see what damage would be on the bosses, right? Which sparked the whole idea. What would the fusion grade setup be like on this boss? Because we know that this boss is tanky, the Ogre. Now I picked up riches there because as you start the fight, there'll be 4 acolytes, right? If you pick any of them riches up, make sure you go and deposit them, because you might pick them up by accident. Don't leave those acolytes up, because they will nade you forever while you're trying to deal with what you actually need to do, and they'll get in the way. So make sure you kill the initial acolytes. But just know that you've already deposited 4 riches. You need 25 riches in total, so the numbers change. The encounter one was 50 or whatever. Now we're 25. Depositing 25 riches will take down the boss's shield, and then you can then do damage. But you need to come into these doors to get the adds. That's where the Scorch Cannon comes in. You can well a Radiance every door. When you get inside here, well every door, because when you pick up 10 riches, you'll get your well back. So doing a super regen build, you don't need to do. Like, you don't need to do any super builds, because the riches does that for you. So don't be specking like intellect. I see any of you specking for intellect, they'll be asking questions. Like, why? Riches does all the intellect for you. Alright? In a team, this is actually harder, because you've got to actually micromanage who's picking up all the riches, which is kind of funny. Because solo, it's actually easier, because you are picking up all the riches. So you're going to have your super guaranteed every door, as I said. So you can do 2 doors at once. So you can do door 1 and then shoot over to door 2 and start getting the riches and get the 25 riches in one go. I'm just showing you the safer way of doing it, methodical way of doing it. If you're super confident do that, that's fine. Just know that if you're slow getting the second door and your timer runs out by riches, you wipe. That it will wipe you, so just be careful. The Thrall at an independent spawn, and they're on a time and they keep spawning. We'll do a well on this door as well. And we'll do a couple of fusion nades. Try to save at least 1 for the boss. I actually probably didn't need to do that. But we're going to get plenty of nade energy anyways. Pick up all your riches. If there's any acolytes left outside, kill them, even if you're not picking up their riches, because obviously it's 25. I've already deposited enough from door 1. This will seal the deal for 25. If you pick up more than 25, that's fine. You'll be standing next to the crystal anyways, because we're going to do damage, so they'll deplete as they should. Any Thrall, quickly kill them before damage, and then you want to do a Well of Radiance. Do a Well of Radiance, and then you just want to prioritize your Rocket and Witherhoard. You can do a bit of fusion rifle shots in between. That's okay as well. If the Ogre pushes you too close though, try to avoid from rocketing, because it's unlikely that you will die in a well, but if he's right on top of you, you might. So I wasn't willing to risk that. On this run, on this particular phase, he's behaving himself, he's getting staggered, that's great. So I'm just doing my damage, and they do half HP. So this is like unoptimized, by the way. I've just come in here for, right, what damage do I do? And they've done half HP. If I'd done that a little better, right, what I'd just done, I could 2-phase this fight. definitely. If I come back in and practice 2 phases boss, two phases boss, really easy. This obviously was just my first clear of it today, like on solo. I haven't played this dungeon at all, apart from, well, actually I haven't at all, because it was bugged, so we couldn't. So this season, first time we're touching it. If you haven't got a well when you approach a door, use Classy Restoration, use your Empower and Rift. You are going to get it back anyways, because you're going to spam your nades. Right? As long as you're keen with your nades and don't sit on nades. With this build, spam them. Use them as much as possible, because that's what this build's all about. Right? Sometimes the throw will push in, so just be careful of that. We'll just use our fusion or whatever. As I said, it's not really ammo dependent too much. I mean, I would recommend trying getting at least a couple of rockets for the next phase though. Right, but obviously this is going to turn into a free phase. I'd have to do a wonder damage phase on phase 2 to get it, you know, it'd be 55%. So it's likely going to be a free phase, and it ended up being so. It's not, as I say, ammo dependent too much, because the fusion nades are going to do all the work really, and the rocket a little bit. I'm just clearing out these for all quickly. This is why I've got the void resist on, the solar void resist, because it helps out against the ogre. I recommend at least one void resistance against this guy. Icarus Dash helps because you can dodge his attack very easily for the next piece of cover. Make sure you learn the room where all the bits and pieces of cover are, because that ogre will melt you no matter what your power is, because you're gated to the level of the dungeon, right? So, you know, you would still get melted by him if you stood out in the open for too long. So that's what I'm trying to explain. Some of those riches exploded, so I'm actually curious. Actually, there's some here. That's fine. Cleared any more acolytes. We've still got some more cannon ammo. This was the first cannon, by the way. Obviously, we used the first cannon from the previous encounter, and then the ogre killed the vandal, and then we picked it up for free. But I'm going to waste out the cannon ammo. Don't be shy to do it. We can easily get another one in a minute, right? And then we'll do a well. You can actually pre-Witherhoard him as well before his shield takes down to get that little bit extra damage. Now while we're on the subject of damage, I understand that Weather Radiance is less damage than an Empower and Rift. But solo-wise, you still really want that Weather Radiance, because 10 seconds of immunity isn't enough. Whereas the well's longer time limits, right? So that's why we do the well. I know that Empower and Rift stacks with other stuff. Whether it's intended or not, I don't know. But before you say, why are you using your well? Well, I'm using it to survive. Right? Well isn't viable now for team. You don't need to use it. But solo it still is, because you can survive. If you die, you're dead. You can't kill the boss, can you? So you've got to play your life a little bit. So I'm still going to use the well. I know that Radiant would stack with Empower and Rift, and I would get more damage. Right? You could maybe do that at the start of the cycle, and then after that Rift ends, pop a well and do it like that, and you will get out more damage a bit like that. That will probably be the answer for the 2 phase. But so if you want to do that, but just make sure that you're popping that well. Once that Classy Restoration buff goes, you pay attention on your left hand screen, side of your screen, then that's fine, do that. So we're on the final phase, so we're just going to rush this a little bit. This fusion rifle is really good as well, because it sort of debuffs the enemy, not debuffs them, but you take reduced damage because of the mod, the origin trait called Psycho Hack. So I actually really like this fusion. It's one of the best fusion rifles in the game. I've got enhanced slideways, and the golden tricorn works out nice with this setup because I'm using my grenade or my melee, so it maxes out the stacks right away. So it's actually really good, this fusion. There's other fusions you could have used. No Composure, Cartesian Coordinate, all sorts of fusions. There's so many different fusions in the game. If you wanted to use a demo fusion, you could do that. That would work out actually nice. You know, it's up to yourself. Whatever fusion you like, but this is just a way. Or Salvo, and I've already said that you can use Salvo, right? Because it's got demo on it, it's got spike, it's got Vorpal. So it's going to put out a lot of damage. So we're on room 2, we're on the final phase. I'm saving my double nades. I mean, I suppose I didn't need to, the boss is literally dead. But I'm impressed with the amount of damage it's doing to this Ogre boss, because he's a very tanky boss, as we all know. So I'm impressed with how easy the setup is, because everything's safe about it. You can well every door, you have classy restoration. Damage is not strict, especially if you're just free phasing. You could just free phase with nades alone and just primary, literally. The rock, you wouldn't even have to rock it. So that's how easy it is. Just make sure when you're playing this build though that you pay real attention to those nades, because if you are late or slow with your nades, the build isn't that good. So it's only as good as you make it, right? So make sure that you do good with that. If there's any thrall around you, be careful about rocketing. Obviously I kill the thrall before the damage phase starts, that way I don't get thrall as I'm damaging him, so that's helpful. I'm going to save a bit of rockets, because you can actually utilize rockets. Actually handy for the next phase, the next Sparrow section. Now I'm not using the OP raid Sparrow, but I am using a Sparrow from Solstice of Heroes, I think 2000 and God, it could be 18, 19, it's like 3-year-old now. But it states that it's a void streak. It states that enemies are less focused on you when you ride it. But any Sparrow will work on the strat that I'm using. You don't have to use always on time. However, it is the best Sparrow in the game. If you want to use it, you can use it. You'll be more consistent with it, because there is a chance of wiping here. It is quite dangerous. So we'll activate. As soon as you activate though, you need to be ready. Right, on the button, ready to go. I go for right side first, right side switch, always. That will then extend your timer a little bit. There's another switch to get, but I'm going to skip because I don't need it. Alright, then we're going to do some side layer dodges on air. Make sure that you do that. The enemy's less likely to hit you if you do a side layer just before you're capturing it. Sparrow right over, don't stop. If you stop at any point, you're probably going to wipe the run. Right, and I'm going to get off my Sparrow here, do a blinding nade shot, because I've swapped to a blinding nade GL. That just ensures you get through that bit without them exploding your Sparrow, because sometimes they can. Then we capture B, we'll get this switch there, right? So just only get the switches that I'm showing you. There's other switches, but you don't need to go over the top with getting every single switch. It's just not necessary for it. This I do highly recommend either rocketing or blinding them, whatever you want. And then get back on your Sparrow, because the timer resets A, B, C, D, right? So you have the time, don't rush it, right? Obviously rush between C and D or B and C, but that time where you're just standing, when you've got 7 seconds left to capture that point, like, use a rocket, blind them, so it means you definitely get through. That's capture point D, which is probably the hardest. I go left. When you go through the portal on your Sparrow, I don't know how this is going to work on PC, because I don't play Destiny on PC, but when you're on controller, hold back on your thumbstick. This means the nose of the Sparrow goes sort of higher up, gives you more height in your jump when you make it over to the cliff. If you don't do that and you have the nose of your Sparrow go down, right, you will hit the cliff and die. I learned that early on when the dungeon first came out, because I kept missing that jump. So just anchor your Sparrow back, right, so you get more height momentum, if that makes sense. That's what I always do. And like I say, I don't know how that works on PC. It works the same, I just don't know how they would what's the movement for that, I don't know. Whatever their bindings is, I suppose. So I forgot to have a sword on me. I'm just going to transfer one over quickly. So I'm just going to go Witherhoard, Fusion, Sword. I'm not even going to change any scavenger mods, any ammo finders, because I can't really be bothered to do that. And it doesn't matter, because Fallen Shield is a very relaxed encounter. The chances of dying are very low, especially on this setup. So it's the easiest encounter of the entire dungeon. There's RNG on where the Fallen Shields spawn, so the Fallen Servitors, should I say. So if you already know this encounter, just as I said, don't really listen to what I'm saying, but if you want to know the mechanics, I can tell you quickly. So you've got these various islands, right? You've got left, right, top, and then the island right in the middle. You don't use the island in the middle for getting servitors. You need to find shielded servitors, right? They can be random on an island. I always go right. If I can't see anything on left, then I'm going to go right, because right you have access to 3 islands. So the chance that is going to be on one of those 3 islands if he's not left hand side. The servitor will always be left or right. He'll never be where you start. The final servitor, you need to take down 4 servitors. The final servitor will always be at the bottom of the map where you spawn. That is one thing that's not RNG. So we need to move all these cannons to get over to where we need to be. Because I've just seen where the servitor is. You need to follow the orange pipe. That's where the generator is that you've been shooting the entire dungeon with the scorch cannon. You do not need to overclock the generator with the scorch cannon. You just tap fire it as long as it... Well, you do need to... I'm saying that wrong. You do need to do that because you need to get into position. So hold it and then walk over to the cannon, then release when you get there. When you're doing the bomb though, you just single tap fire. That's what I was meaning. You'll get a fresh fallen vandal with a scorch cannon each island. That's a failsafe so that you'll never be stuck on an island, so you'll always have access to a cannon where the cannon drops off the map. You use all 10 shots, whatever. Each island has a fallen vandal every time. Alright, so you can actually use the 8 cannon for ag clear if you want and then get a fresh cannon. I don't think you need to do that, but it is something you can do. I'm just going to use Witherhoard, sword, and just, you know. I think that's where this dungeon loses pace, right? You know, because Grasp is, from what I remember, a good day 1 experience. It was like you're going on an adventure, it's very fun, you die into traps. It's like, what is this? There's nothing like this in the game. And there's no encounter like this in the game. Anywhere that I can think of where there's like, where you take down a shield on something. And there's multiple islands. Like, there's nothing like it. But once you've seen and done it, when you replay, there's no replayability, especially to this encounter. The Ogre fight's good in what it is. Actually, the Ogre fight's really good. I would say it's the best boss fight in this. And the final boss, solo-wise, is balanced. It's just too long of a trek, too many riches. You need to get 60 riches per crystal, so per damage phase. So the average player isn't even 3 phase in this fight. I'll be honest, there's people 4 phasing and 5 phasing solo. You know, the people who aren't making a video on it, the people who are just going for the emblem, those people, you know, it's a 40-minute boss fight to them, and that's not even on master difficulty. So like a 40-minute boss fight is just, like, solo-wise, it's too long. A team, it's fine, because you need 60 riches, so 20 riches per class is not a tall order at all. I think what they could have done is lowered the riches count when you're solo, and they could have done that. Because we've seen where they've started to alter things when you're solo, like the Witch Queen campaign. When you were solo, the things were different. The game behaved differently. So they've started doing that with other stuff, right? So I feel as though they could have just maybe halved the riches. I think that would have made the fight. It would make it more fast-paced, and that's what this dungeon's lacking. You lose pace here because this is such a long. It's not long, but it is kind of long though. And what you're doing, you know, and the boss fight certainly is long because you've got the 60 riches per phase. And chances are you're going to be 3 phasing solo, right? I'm not sure. I don't think you're going to be 2 phasing unless. I mean, there is players out there that's going to be able to do that, but I'm not making that video for those people. You must understand. Per phase, to take the shield off the servitor, you need 20 riches. So it's just 20 riches per crystal. So it's not a tall order, right? Don't deal damage to the servitor until he's in a nice spot. If you clear the servitor where he's a million miles away from the cannon, right, you're going to sometimes have where the bomb, because the servitor turns into a bomb, gets stuck somewhere. And it has happened to people. It can disappear, it can teleport the bomb, it can fall off map. If it falls off map, you're going to have to do an extra phase of servitors. You won't get a respawn on the servitor on the same island that you're on. So I'm just letting you know what happens when things go bad. When there's server maintenance, right, for Destiny, don't play this dungeon because it's really bad, which is actually right now as I speak. There's hotfix or whatever. But I played it just before the maintenance come on. But yeah, so the dungeon has issues, definitely. With this, it can be buggy, is what I'm trying to explain. So now we're going to go top right. We're kind of getting bad RNG a little bit on where all the servitors have been. I've sort of been back and forth. The reason why I don't like that is because you move the cannon. What you must understand is as the encounter starts, the cannons are all set up to target the fallen shield, the bombs. So that means you don't need to move it. When you're ready, prep for your bomb, you don't need to move anything. Whereas if you've already moved them to get to another island, you need to move them again to set up for the bomb. So my golden rule is I don't care, always check your cannon. Just double check it, takes 2 seconds. Check that cannon's lined up before you shoot the bomb. Because if you get it, like shoot the generator for the bomb, if you get it wrong, you're going to have to refarm up a server. And this encounter is long enough as it already is. Don't make it any longer than what it needs to be. Just check it, 2 seconds. If you know that you haven't moved the cannon, then you shouldn't need to. But as I said, if you're going back and forth, you might just want to check it. We'll deposit our 20. The ads are infinite spawning, so if you lose a lot of riches, you have opportunity to get the riches back. The dregs will just keep spawning. They will stop spawning, however, when you get the bomb. So just explaining the spawns. I'll talk about the spawns a little bit more because it's a bit more important for the boss fight. The enemy spawns, how it works, because I think people are still a little confused on how that works. Because enemy spawns in Destiny vary on how it works from encounter to encounter in strikes, raids, you name it. There's variants where you clear all ads, you don't get any more ads. Some encounters have infinite waves of ads. Dungeons generally do. That's the common theme. Look at Prophecy, infinite scions. Look at Duality, infinite Cabal scions. Look at any of the dungeons. Shattered Throne, infinite scions. So you see where I'm going with it. But the reason why they do that is so that you can refarm up ammo. It's a failsafe. It's also a good way of making the dungeon more interesting. Because if it wasn't infinite ads, they would really be super easy. So it serves two purposes. So I'm just letting you know why there is infinite waves of ads. That's just what it is. So as I said, the last servitor will always be at spawn or close to spawn, and it is, right? So we'll just finish off this last wave. I am going to swap for the boss to the original loadout that I used because I wanted this dungeon so that the loadout really wouldn't change, and it hasn't changed really in terms of I don't want to completely change everything. I wanted to just go back to what I was using: Sleepless, Demo Rocket, Witherhoard, and then the Fusion. I would also recommend having a primary on you, a good primary that you like using just in case you get screwed by ammo. Because I have said that you do get an increased chance at heavy, but if you're absolutely spamming your special weapons like I'm spamming this fusion, then when you go for boss damage, I don't recommend just sitting with a fusion rifle with 0 ammo. Because in between the Witherhoard, in between the rockets, you want something in that special stuff just to do any damage, even if it's just an auto rifle, just to do a little bit more damage so that you get more fusion nades on the boss. So that's the golden rule. I'll repeat it later on when we get the damage, just so that people don't, as I said, because that might happen. On phase 1 you'll be good because you'll have fresh ammo from your banner. Phase 2 and 3 is where it's going to be for your ammo, where you need to manage it. So this is the final bomb. I'm double checking it. Yes, it's set up. We're good. We'll pick up the Scorch Cannon. We'll just do a tap fire, and that's that encounter done. Obviously, you can go over and pick up your loot. Loot will be in middle. I didn't even pick it up. I'll just go to the postmaster. I can check it later on or whatever. This middle cannon will also, when you finish the encounter, all the cannons go to their preset, so you don't need to move them. They actually all move back to where they should be, so you don't need to move them. So this cannon will actually be set up for you to go, because that cannon's actually quite awkward, the one I just used. You can actually move it in some awkward places, and it's not clear exactly where it's taking you. But as I said, when the encounter's finished, all the cannons will move to where their origin point, where they should be. So I haven't switched any mods. I am going to switch one here actually, tell a lie. I'm going to go double arc resist because everything deals arc. The only thing that's really solar is the Scorch Cannon guys, the Vandals, which they're not a threat to you. What's a threat to you is the arc nades, all the arc tracking shots that the dregs do. Obviously switch off your heavy. I don't recommend a sword for this encounter. Other than Lament. Lament obviously, yes, very good with a loosened blade build and stuff. You can go that route if you want, but as I said, I wanted to go all in with the fusion nades because I'm using that build, so I may as well spec on top of that with like a demo rocket and stuff. I'm just recording some footage here, just so don't worry. I'm just stopping for that second because I don't want to start the fight for that, and then we'll start it up. So the boss started bugging out here, so just be careful. Don't trust anything. He could maybe paw on you and stomp you off map. It's something that you've really got to pay attention with this boss fight, which I'll go over. You can see he stomped me there. I'll use my Icarus Dash though. That's why I've got Icarus Dash on for any, because this whole boss arena is a death trap. Any of the water, your toes touch it, you die. Any champs go in there, they die. So it is a death trap. So having an Icarus Dash just to save you or whatever is handy. So that's why I'm using it. I used some damage with my well. I've done as much as I could. The sniper's awkward to Witherhoard, I must be honest. Can be at times, but he's literally finishable or close to. Going to use a bit of fusion ammo here. You'll get these, so we'll refer to these as VIP targets. You'll get 2 VIP targets per phase, which is the sniper and the fallen marauder, the invisible guy. Right? So we can use a bit of Empire and Rift damage with the nade, which absolutely wrecks him. Notice I've got no abilities now, right? So I'm going to just be relying on my recharge rates. That's why I'm still rocking high discipline, high recovery, high resilience and everything. Because obviously the recovery is linked to your Rift recharge rate, right? Because there's going to be times, especially when you're doing damage to these VIP targets, where you might run out of a Rift and stuff because you're using it on single targets and you're not going to kill them right away because they're quite tanky. You can use the Scorch Cannon though to deal damage to them, so that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm just going to spam all the shots. I'm going to try and get the double charge though, because what I'm doing here, because this guy's really hard to hit with the cannon, so what I'm doing is every time he staggers, just watch his movement, his AI. He staggers, that's that moment to get a clean shot on him, and just to keep him in this stagger phase. It makes this guy really easy to deal with, because once you lose track of him and you miss a shot, it's difficult to sort of get hold of him, because he'll just go invis, he'll hide behind the boss, he'll do all that stuff. This guy will drop you 10 riches for free. Now as I said, you need 60 riches in total, so that's going to be 50 now because I've dunked 10, so just remember that. If you don't get the riches from this guy and the riches explode, then that's fine. You'll just need 60. Now I missed my jump here, so that was actually, this is the worst part of the whole run. This is the only part of the run where I nearly died, so it was quite shocking to be honest. But this is where you can go. It's kind of funny actually. This is where you can go to survive that. If I hadn't had an Icarus Dash on there, I would have been dead. Really. But that's more, that's not the game, that's more me. That's a mistake by me. So we've used the Scorch Cannon for damage, which means we need to refarm one up. But that's fine, because we've got ammo for boss damage. So we don't need to farm up much ammo really. So, to explain this a little bit, there's 3 opening points on the arena above the boss, right? 2 of them are always open, 1 of them is shut. There's middle, left and right. The middle one is always open, right? The middle one is always open, and left and right, they shut. So if left's open, right is shut. Right open, left shut. So that's how you know, right? But you can basically just use left hand side of the map where I'm standing and just do all your riches from here. You can if you want, right? I do it various ways, and I'm actually rusty at this dungeon because I haven't played it for ages. So I'm not doing the absolute pro strat, is what I'm trying to tell you. Not doing the double cannon shot where you get 2 dunks at a time. So I'm actually taking my time with the whole thing. I'm going to go to right though. Actually, I'm going to dunk 20. There's different ways of doing this. So you can do 3 stacks of 20. That's giving you 60. Or 2 stacks of 20 and a 10. Because you've already done the stack of 10 from the marauder. And do it like that. Just know that the higher your riches count, the higher you are going with risk. Right? Because that means you've got to stand in middle for all those riches to deplete. Right? So if you're not competent with this, just do 10, 10, 10, 10 if you want. If you really want to do it like that, do it like that. I would say that the ample is 20. You know, probably do that. Probably do 2 20s and a 10. That's probably the safest way. But this is where the classy restoration comes in. You can use that rift. That's going to be 10 seconds of immunity, right? So that's plenty of time. If you approach the crystal with full HP, sort of dodge their attacks, then pop a rift, you should survive it for sure. We're going to come to right hand side. Like I was saying, you don't have to do what I'm doing, but I'm just, as I say, I'm just doing it like this. Also, you saw that my time was getting low there. If you ever miss a shot and you're low on time, say if you're 10 seconds, you miss your cannon shot, I recommend you immediately go middle, because the riches could wipe you. That's a thing that can happen. That's something that you've got to be really careful with. Now we'll just go to middle. I think this might be enough riches now. I'm not actively counting it up as I'm watching this. I think it is. So do an Empowering Rift near the end. We're ready for boss damage. We'll pop our well. We'll just do damage from middle. So we'll lead with a Witherhoard shot, and then we'll focus a bit of rockets. Every time though, we're sort of bringing out that rocket though, we're reloading it with demo. So obviously the rocket is reloaded every time that you throw your grenade. So this is where all my damage is coming from. I'm doing a bit of fusion damage there. This damage is okay, could have definitely been better. It's not too bad though. I actually end up taking the fusion off. The fusion actually ends up me losing damage for this particular fight. I just end up switching to a SMG and just use the SMG to sort of gain back fusion grade energy, because I could have naded the boss a lot more than what I did. I've done around about a third damage there though. I would say it's bang on a third. So this is going to be a free phase on this way of doing it. You'll then get the fresh VIP targets. This is where your ammo is going to be really lacking. That's why I end up switching off the fusion, because the fusion's alright, don't get me wrong, but it's not the best either. You know, salvo would have worked better in this. But as I said, I use this for the Ogre fight, so I just wanted to continue on. But if you are sitting on 0 fusion ammo for quite some time, don't start the fight with 0. Like, switch to a primary, because then at least you're dealing damage in your well to then get fusion nades. You absolutely need some sort of weapon to be doing constant damage. And if that means to be a primary, that's fine. You're still going to do really good damage, and you'll see that I end up doing so. So, because of our loadout, we're just going to use the Scorch Cannon. Whenever we get a rift though, we can use that and then try and get some nades on him. Just know that this sniper's awkward. He sort of strafes your shots and your nades and stuff. It can be awkward. If you're getting plenty of enemy fire from left and right, then just use a Witherhoard shot or whatever just to kill some of them, because you don't want too many adds up. So to talk about the waves of enemies in this fight, they are infinite. It doesn't work if you leave one dreg up, right? So there's enemies on beach and left and right. If you leave one dreg up, that ain't going to solve it. You're still going to get adds, right? They're like on a timer. So, but it is worth your while at times clearing them for ammo purposes. But when you get to boss damage, you really don't need to, because your well will easily out tank all the damage. Whereas this wasn't the case. Well's obviously been buffed. So you really don't need to clear out any of the adds for boss damage if that's your worry, because the well will out tank them all. The sniper is taken out. I'm going to use a well here, because obviously we're going to get wells back. So we may as well to speed this up, because I don't want to take forever with this Marauder. Right, he's actually retreating, which is quite annoying, but I'm just using Witherhoard. Right, we get our riches, we'll get 10, we'll get our well back. I recommend that you just well again, because you're going to get plenty of wells. Right, unless your well was already on the crystal, then you wouldn't need to. But so we've dunked our 10 now, it's just rinse and repeat from here. So we just need the Scorch Cannon guy, we also need ammo. But at the time I was sort of stubborn on wanting to stay with the fusion. to sort of hope for getting ammo. I suppose I can sort of talk about how ammo works a little bit. So there's a lot of misconceptions with ammo and how it works. Obviously, scavenger mods increase the ammo that you get per brick. I always recommend you run scavenger mods. Currently though, linear scavenger doesn't work, but everything else does. So when you're playing solo, always run scavenger. I know there's a lot of build crafting going on in the game, and scavenger mods take up a lot of energy and ruins a lot of build crafting, and ammo finders do as well, specifically because they're in the helmet slot. But I always recommend you run like the ammo finders and stuff, and it's just more consistent on getting ammo. But you are eventually going to get ammo anyways, because for every kill that you get, if you don't get a brick, there's an overwhelmingly increasing chance of you getting ammo on the next kill, and it just, the odds of that keep going up and up and up. So you could be farming for ammo for 5 minutes, and yeah, it's annoying, but you really need to farm up ammo per phase, because you're wasting your time with this fight. Because if you start the phase and you've got 1 rocket and you've got basically no ammo, then you're ruining the chances of getting your 3 phase or even 2 phase or whatever you're doing. So that's why the scavengers are so important. Now I missed my cannon shot, you notice, so I'm gonna just deposit what I've got. Because if I went for the next cannon shot and I missed that, then it's over. So this is why I don't like this middle. The reason why I don't like this middle one right here is because the hitbox on it, if we want to call it that, it's at an angle. It's like when you miss, if you miss like that, if you don't get the cannon right in the middle there, then you're not going to get the charge. So that's why I hate that particular deposit where you put the Scorch cannon in. That's why I use left and right quite a lot. Right? So that's the only reason for it. If there's plenty of dregs like that, something happened there. I don't know, maybe my fusion grenade got shot out of the air or something, but I took a lot of damage. But if there's a lot of dregs like that, yeah, use your fusion grenade or a cannon shot. Don't spam your cannon shot too much, because you're going to need to refarm one up, which just takes more time. So at least save a couple of shots and micromanage what riches you were on. Actively count them in your head. So once you've got 10, 20 or whatever, just remember what you've already deposited if you're doing it in phases. Couple of adds on here. You can also activate Class of Restoration, because every time you pick up 10 riches, you'll get your rift back. So you have unlimited restoration while you're doing this. So it's actually very safe that way. We're going to try and go for mid. Right, when no ads are shooting me, it's fine, not getting staggered. It's when they stagger you, it's annoying when you're trying to hit it. But again, as I said, I'm rusty with this dungeon. I haven't really played it for a bit, since I last farmed it. So we've got enough riches. We're going big here for the 40, because I dunked 10 off the Marauder, 10 because I missed a shot before, and then we got 40, which will be 60. So notice I'm dodging the fire, resilience is helping out, then I'll pop a rift around about halfway to survive, then we'll do a well. You absolutely want a well. I know, as I said before, I know that well is less damage, but you need to be able to survive and out-tank the damage. Right? Now, these different ways of doing damage to him, I've done all the different ways before. You see, I know you can stand behind the cabin, you can do stuff like that, but I'm just doing it from middle, because this is just like more of an easy strat. I've switched to an SMG because the fusion, I'm just not getting the ammo for it, so I just switched it off. So doing like that. That damage was much better because I was nading him more often, so I actually lost damage because of the fusion. But it's more consistent for heavy. Now you're going to see that I'm going to actually struggle to get heavy, because now I've got a primary in the mix. And you do get less ammo overall when you've got primary, special, heavy. But it's fine. As I said, the more enemies you kill, the chances of you getting heavy and special automatically increase. It just takes a bit of time. It's just something that you've got to do, I guess. We've got our 2 fresh VIP targets that we take out. Whenever I'm doing empowerment, I have to do it behind this box. Right? Now, if you can get some good nade shots, I am choking my nades bad. I'm actually mad about it. But if you can get your nade shots on the sniper, it does massive damage to him. You can also increase the damage of the Scorch Cannon via your Empower Rift. Right. Funnily enough, I missed my nade, but I actually killed something because I got my Rift back. So that's actually kind of handy. You can come up on top of the cabin. The boss will nade you. He'll do his special nade every now and then. But mainly you're safe back here. This is your safety zone. When ads really pack up on left hand side, that's where you get a lot of the nades from. We'll do another rift. We got some good damage on him this time, so that's good. I'm also waiting on a well. So I'm actually kind of farming my well of Radiance because I'm going to use my well on the Marauder, which I always recommend doing. Don't use your well on the sniper if you're on phase 2 and 3, because that's going to be more of a waste. You can easily get the sniper with Empower Rift and the Scorch Cannon. Easy hit at that. But the Marauder isn't so easy. That's where if you can use a well and go into middle, right, then that's better. Now the reason why you need to take him out, which I haven't said at all, and I think people don't even know that this is a thing. If you don't kill the Marauder and you go and pick up all the riches, he will steal all the riches. That's crazy. It's a crazy mechanic and I love that. I wish that was more explored, where he would actually just go and steal them anyways while he's alive. Like, I don't know. I would like them to have explored that a little more. So that's kind of interesting. So he will actually steal all riches. So yeah, you need to kill him. And also he'll get in the way of you while you're doing boss damage. You could rocket yourself as he's in middle. So if you leave him alive and you go through all the motions, it's no good. He's going to ruin your damage. So yeah, you need to take him out. So those are the reasons why you should. So now we need to farm up ammo. All the VIP targets are taken out. You can see the boss is around about a third exactly, or just maybe slightly below. So yeah, it's just a case of now farming ammo up. I've got 3 rockets, which I wasn't happy enough with. I was wanting at least one more brick. And then I'm happy with that. This is where the infinite waves will come in. Like, imagine if there wasn't an infinite wave of ads. The encounter wouldn't work. Because of how tanky these dungeon bosses are, which they're meant to be, it wouldn't work. Like, if you only got like 3 waves of dregs and then that was it, you just wouldn't get the ammo to do damage. So the encounter wouldn't work without this. So it makes sense why there is. Also, I haven't really spoke about, but I've got Charge of Light. Now, I've got Striking Light on, so when you run around the map, you get extra resistance when you're sprinting, which you're doing that quite a lot in this dungeon entirely. You're running around a lot. Striking Light, it does stack with the resistance that we've got, right? So you're even tankier while sprinting, so just adds to the setup. We're still struggling for ammo, as you can see. I'm just looking around the map just in case the Marauder or something didn't drop heavy, but it doesn't look like that he did. So we're just gonna, what I'm gonna do to try and do is just rotate my damage. So sometimes I'll grenade them at a chance of heavy, and sometimes I'll use my SMG or Witherhoard. It just depends. But there's no rhyme or reason. It's just a case of just go around, kill all the enemies, and hope for some heavy. You don't need max heavy, right? But I would recommend a couple of rockets just to assist, because I haven't tested this damage without, maybe just using Witherhoard, nades and a primary. I haven't tested that, so I wasn't under the impression of what damage I would do without the rockets. So as a failsafe, because that's what everything's about with me when I'm doing these runs, it's all about providing. Right, so if this doesn't happen, will I still be good? Yeah, I will, because I've got the ammo for it. That's how I think in these. It's not how fast I can do it, right? Because I'm making a video on it, so I'm not fussed about how long it's taken and stuff, because I'm not in the speedrun community like I used to be. I used to be in that community. I used to actively upload. If you're new to here, I used to actively upload to speedrun.com, the leaderboards, because Destiny 2 has a category on there. I've spoke about it multiple times, but some people won't know about it. I just didn't get the growth on YouTube with the speedruns. So I stopped doing that actively. It's not because I hate speedruns. I love speedruns. You can learn so much information, so much valuable information from speedruns. Watch them because you learn so much off them. They are the cream of the crop with players. The problem with speedrunners is that they don't have any relatability. You can't relate to them if you're not a speedrunner, and that's where the problem with speedrunning comes, is that people don't want to, some people don't want to watch it because they can't replicate what they're doing. Some people will, some people won't, but I'm just saying that's why I don't do like a pure speedrun anymore, you know, where you're actively competing for times. That I'm sort of done with all that. Done a lot of time, spent a lot of time on it, and it was just digging myself a deeper hole than what it needed to be. Once I just started doing stuff that was actually easier for me, I grew more. So that means that I was actually making more videos. So that means it's healthier for me to keep going with the YouTube for years and years, and you know, hopefully for a couple more years, as opposed to digging myself a deep hole, going nowhere, maybe breaking some records, but it's not helping me in any shape or form YouTube wise. And that is the really end game of it, to do good with the YouTube list. There's no point me uploading. So make no mistake about it, I am doing it to actually actively grow, not just to help people. I'm actually trying to do both. I'm actually trying to grow and help myself, and actually help people while doing it. That's the route I'm taking with it. This is the final phase. I needn't really say too much. It's the same as what we've just done in the final two phases. Obviously, really prioritise those nades, but as you can see, it's a really fun loadout for this dungeon. But that was the Soul Falls for Grasp with Soul 3.0 for this week. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.